I think if there's any single thing that we wanted to say is just thank you. Um, eh, I'll tell you what I want to say, and I guess we'll get started, whatever. Like, what I want to say to all of you is thank you. And there have been so many times, sometimes many times per day, when I have also wanted to say, I am so, so sorry for torturing you. Uh, and so thank you for putting up with that. And when I say that, like, we feel your pain, like I really do experience it as like physical pain a lot of the time, where knowing when things are not working and that it is frustrating for you, it truly keeps me up at night. So I wanted to share some of the things we've been working on in the background, and you'll probably hear me say thank you about 1,000,000 times tonight, and I really mean it. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, meeting adjourned. No. Uh, let's see. So, Gina, what? I don't know if any of you have actually seen Gina before. I got to meet Gina in person in May for the first time.
Yeah,
We've been working
yeah.
together for, I don't know, it's either been months or years or decades. It's really hard to tell at this point. So
Mhm.
Gina, go ahead and just say hi, introduce yourself. I'm sure everybody knows Gina, but maybe you haven't like talked to her in person or said hi or seen her.
Well, I'm sure that I have talked with most of you, and as Aaron says, thank you so much because I finding volunteers, that's what keeps me up at night. So between the two of us, I guess we're up all the time. So thank you for letting me, you know, email you and just yes, thank you. Thank you for the the phone volunteers who help out to answer questions, that you guys answer each other's questions and stuff, because that just takes a total load off of us. And it has been, with Hurricane Idalia, kind of took it up a notch. And so I particularly wanted to shout out to those who really helped with that. We had a lot of new phone volunteers during that, and they really stepped up. And so just grateful for every volunteer who took any call, grateful for those who help others. That's all I'll say. Thank you, Aaron.
Awesome. All right. So here is what I would like to do. I have a list of things that I want to go through very quickly, as quickly as possible. And then I would like to spend time answering questions or responding to feedback. So what would be great is as we're talking, if you want me to address anything at all, put it in the chat. It could be a question, it could be a complaint, it could be an observation, it could be like, throwing tomatoes. And I just want to make sure that like we're as open and transparent as possible about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and why things are going so slow. Because they always seem to go way slower than they feel like they should. So let me do this. Let's see. Can you, let's see, Gina, can you enable screen share real quick?
Yeah, I should have done that before. Sorry.
Okay. Well, while Gina's doing that, let me go over some stats. So just some simple stats. Since July 1st of this year, we've taken 14,489 inbound calls and 3,609 outbound. So those are callbacks. And those are the calls that you guys have done. If you have not already, so last year after Ida, we did something special and we'd like to do it again. For those of you who have not received a crisis cleanup shirt, we would like to send you one. And if you are on the call, you qualify. All we need is your mailing address. So it'd be just a mailing address. I think we've got your phone number on file, and we would really love to mail you a thank you. We had them made specially for crisis cleanup phone volunteers, and you cannot get them anywhere else. You can't buy them. They're not for sale. And so if you see someone with a crisis cleanup shirt on, it means that they're more than likely a phone volunteer, or like one of the 5 or 10 people who have ever worked, actually around five people or so who work for crisis cleanup.
And
So
their size.
what's that? Oh, yes, and the size, please. Please tell us your size. Yes.
They seem to run a little small.
Yeah. So you can either put that in the chat or email Gina. Gina will put.
I'm gonna put my info in the chat.
Yeah. So if yeah, great. So I just wanted to put that out. Then let's see some stats. Oh, as you're all probably aware, actually, I'm going to share my screen now. Screen 2, share. All right, you should all be able to see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
All right, we're going to head over to Hurricane Idalia. And in Hurricane Idalia, we, like as I mentioned earlier, we had our developers all show up in Tallahassee, and we went out and turned some of these dots green, and got frustrated and all of the things. While we were there, Toby, one of our developers, this is the work view, decided to add a little feature we're calling the photo view. So you have, I'm going to zoom in slightly so you can see it a little easier. On the work tab, you'll have the map view, the table view, and we now have the photo view. So you'll notice here, so whenever you do an intake, the survivor receives a text message and or email with a link that they can use to update their own case. So let's see, I'll give you an example of what this looks like. Okay, so mainly so that you just know here. All right, so that it'll tell them their case number, and it'll ask them, and this is meant to be viewed on a phone, which is why it's really wide on a desktop here. We'll zoom in here, and it'll ask them, do you still need help? Yes, I need help. I don't need help. Someone else help me, or I need more help. And if they say I don't need help anymore, it will automatically close the case out and turn it green to make it easier on the volunteers in the field. About 96% of survivors click that link, and between 40 and 60% will update it, update their case in some way. They can upload photos. You can see that people like uploading photos. For Hurricane Idalia, we've had 10,000 for Hurricane Idalia alone, 10,000 photographs uploaded, 88,000 total, almost 90,000. And then they can opt out. They can choose how often they want to get reminders, and then they can also add notes. And so anyway, those photos now are available kind of here, right, where you can zoom in, and this is really helpful for volunteers in the field who are trying to get a sense of, like, what does this work look like. So we can zoom in here and click on it, and once we're down to the case, the case will load on the right side as normal, and then give you a sense of, like, this is what you're looking at, right? Like, this is going to be several chainsaw, that's probably 2 chainsaw job for the better part of an hour if that's the only tree. It looks like multiple views of the same tree, but it's something that it's not like a 4-foot diameter tree or anything like that. So I just want to let you know that is a thing. Also, a new thing up here at the top is download the app. We do have an app now. We've finally done that. So it is designed for field volunteers, not so much phone volunteers. To answer calls, you're still going to want to go on the website. And let's see here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll unshare my screen and then I'll show my phone. All right. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so what you're seeing here is an app. It's not the website, although it looks kind of like the website and behaves somewhat similarly. And the important part of this app is designed for the field volunteers. So what you do is you log in and it downloads all of the cases. Then you don't need internet. So you can go out into the field and you can claim cases and close cases and add cases and upload photos, and it will save it on your phone until you get back within data range, and then it will sync up to the mothership. So we've been working really, really, really hard and spending a lot of time and money on doing this. But we have a native app for both iOS and Android, and that's available in the App Store, right away. So yeah, that's exciting news. We launched that for Hurricane Idalia. Let's see here. I will go back to sharing my screen. Oh, and please, in the chat, just add questions. Generally, we'll be looking at those as well. Sure. Okay. So other things that we've done. So very recently, we did an update to the website where we only load what is minimally necessary each time. So you might notice that load times are faster. We've got them down from several seconds to most of the time under a second under most circumstances, but it's noticeable. Just wanted to let you know, like we're doing our best to make that better. While we were in Florida, we made like a month and a half's worth of improvements. And we had an entire wall full of like bugs that we wanted to fix, and we got quite a few of them fixed. But it wouldn't be crisis cleanup if we didn't finish off that week by shooting ourselves in the foot. We had one developer who did a huge refactor on authentication, and authentication touches everything. And worked through the entire night, and he was smart enough to not deploy it because anytime, like it was ready for testing, but it was not ready for deployment. Well, he tagged it and went to sleep, and then the system rebuilt itself and went, oh, I see that you've got a new version here. Why don't I just use this? And pulled that new version. And things blew up spectacularly because, why not just shoot ourselves in the foot? So we spent a solid week working through, playing whack-a-mole and doing all that. And that was a very, very painful week for everyone. And I'm super sorry. We're good now. We've worked through those, the vast majority of those little whack-a-moles. But yeah, it would be nice if we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot every once in a while, but hey, why break with tradition? Let's see, Gina, are there any other things that I should show everybody?
I would show the Zoom link button.
Okay, the Zoom link. Okay, so we now have a Zoom link here.
Which we're going to change to Chime.
We might change to Chime. I don't know. It might be Zoom or Chime. So Amazon is kind enough to donate all their servers to us. And so if we want to, I don't know, be impressive to them, we might change it to Chime. But I know that everybody knows how to use Zoom. And so anyway, we'll see. Zoom or Chime. But the point is, as you are answering phones, there might be times when you just need to talk to somebody or talk it out. You can just jump in the Zoom room. And that's the idea, is just go chat with somebody. And I know that several several folks here have offered to staff it during, high attention, catastrophic disasters with a lot of phone calls. Gina's been on there a lot, and then that's in addition to the chat.
Right, to ask for help too.
Yeah, yeah.
Where is that located on these little icons in the Zoom room?
You see the little Z for.
I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
easy enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, another thing that we've noticed is that these little tabs, good idea, but they're getting a little populated. And so we've asked our designer to do kind of a redesign of it. So you'll be seeing kind of an updated design here. And it might be, everything I'm talking about might be months from now, who knows. But actually, this is another thing that I think is really worth talking about, and that is onboarding. It is intimidating to be a phone volunteer for the first time. The technology can be intimidating. At knowing what to say can be intimidating when you have never gotten that particular question before. In the past, we've had the help button, and people would click help, and it went to open up the help desk ticket, and we wouldn't see it for 4 hours. And in the meantime, that's not enough time to answer the call, to return a call or whatever. It's like we opened up we've had the phone training, and we've produced hundreds of pages of documentation over the years. The phone training video is helpful. It's very useful. But in all of our training materials, whether it's written material or whether it is videos or whatever else, we have to walk this line, because for some people, like, they want 5 minutes of training and then just jump in with both feet and they'll figure it out. And we want to encourage that, right? And some people are totally comfortable. Other new phone volunteers feel anxious. Even if you gave them 4 straight hours of training, they want to know every single thing that they could possibly know. And even if you gave them 4 hours of training, they're not going to retain it all, right? Like, so at a certain point, you have to jump in. And all of the answers to all the questions are written down anyway. I mean, like I said, we have hundreds of pages of documentation that we've created over the years, mostly Gina. And people still don't read it. So as we've been trying to figure out how to make the phone system better and more accessible, especially to the first-time phone volunteer, and also to take some of the load off of the phone chat, because the phone chat is wonderful. I cannot ever imagine not having the phone chat. I don't know about any of you, but the ability to just go in and phone a friend and help, what do I say? And then everybody jumps in and supports one another. That is enormously helpful for everyone. Yeah, it's also a little exhausting when you're one of the more advanced volunteers and you're answering the same question 20 times a day or more. So there are a couple of strategies that we're heading towards. I want to reiterate, these are brainstorms, these are ideas that we want to go towards. We're not ready to come out with them tomorrow. It will take some design and development, but I wanted your feedback. So the first is, before you take your first phone call, is to walk you through an actual phone call. So in this version, in this view, before you take your first phone call, there'll be like a tutorial that'll say, okay, start the tutorial, and your phone will ring. And you'll press 1 to accept, like you normally do, and then you'll listen to an actual phone call, and you'll listen and be prompted to type information into the new case field, and you'll hear common questions that come up, and you'll hear how that person, the phone volunteer, handles them, and as a part of the training. So instead of just a video or whatever, like really kind of making it four-dimensional and like making your phone ring. That's one thing that we're thinking about, and I'd love your thoughts on that. So one. Number two, we want to make the chat far better. This is just, as simple a chat as we can make it. And make it made a little bit easier to scroll up and search and reply and emojis and upload photos and things like that most chats, chat test systems do. But then also create a context-aware FAQ. Now, I'm going to say AI, and then some people go, "Oh no, AI, that's scary." But we have gobs and gobs of information, and what I think phone volunteers more than anything need is not to know everything ahead of time. You just need to know that one thing right now, whatever that thing is. And so in the chat, when you're on the call, in the chat, we'll have like imagine like a little FAQ over here, for example, that is aware of what is being chatted about. And if there's a lot of questions about Debrief, for example, then you might see an FAQ about debris, for example, and then you can just click that, and there's your answer. And we didn't want to make a chat bot, that was going to like try to answer your questions. ChatGPT is super cool and all that, but like, when you say, "I'm having a really good day," the last thing in the world you want is for a chat bot to say, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're having a good day." Like, shut up, get away from me. So it's more like a context-aware FAQ, and then the same thing in the phone. When you're on the call, we can't like in real time monitor what's being said and then offer you information like real time. But what we can do is analyze like the previous 100 phone calls, for example, or the previous phone calls in the previous week for that disaster, and then based upon that come up with an FAQ with the information that's you're likely going to need. So those are some ideas. I just wanted to pause here, of directions that we've been thinking in terms of like how do we implement the just-in-time training. So any thoughts, questions, concerns, pushback?
Review the chat on that. They've been answering.
Okay. Who's that? All right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through some of these. Can you comment on how the app is changing the administration of the command center? So we have 3 milestones for the app. The first one is work sites only, and then the second milestone is to make it super easy to invite new users. So you hold up your QR code, for example, and then everybody else in your team in the parking lot scans it, and then they're in, right? They instantly have an account, and then so that's the second one, the second milestone. Third milestone is teams and command center, to allow command center staff to like assign teams and then have that pop up on your phone so that you can, instantly see what's going on. So yes, we actually have quite a bit of design around that. I can't tell you when that's going to happen though. It's, money and time and whatever else, but yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic, do you see command centers continuing to assign the work as they have in the past, or do you see teams picking their own assignments?
I see far more of teams picking their own assignments, but both are going to be appropriate in different circumstances. I don't think command centers are going to go away. Some organizations just really like that. Sometimes you'll have sister organizations arriving from out, and they're like, "I don't know, just tell me what to do." So I don't think they're going anywhere, but we definitely want to facilitate self-direction that's everyone can see.
Cool.
Nikki, great question. Are you going to fix that thing where I had to keep deleting my cookies every 20 minutes to take a call? I know you didn't write it angry, but I'm angry. I'm going to read it as angry because that's me being angry about that. Yes, that should be mostly fixed. If it isn't, please let me know, because that shouldn't be happening at this point. And there are a million reasons why, and I could go into it, but it will make your eyes glaze over. But yeah, that should be done.
Well, what was interesting with that issue is that I had different behavior depending on the browser that I was using. So I seemed to have better luck at Firefox initially, but then when that broke, then I switched over to Edge, which is Chrome based, and that seemed to work okay.
So we had so I mean, either Chrome or Firefox should work. Generally, we found that our Firefox, for some reason, tends to be more stable overall, generally speaking, but whatever, it shouldn't be. We had an issue. Some of you may experience the issue where everything would, like, the map would suddenly disappear, like all of the icons would like go away all of a sudden. If you experience that, again, I'm sorry. What was happening is every time you zoom in or out, the map has to redraw. And what we were doing is we were saying, okay, don't use the old one anymore, use this new one. But we weren't telling the computer to destroy it. So every time you'd zoom in and out, you'd create this new copy, and eventually you'd have like thousands of copies, and the buffer would just overflow and wouldn't be able to do anything, and it would crash. We figured that one out too. So that shouldn't be happening anymore. Again, I'm sorry. And I can't believe that you guys still put up with us after all of the crud that we put you through. Just, yeah. Let's see. Received an email. It was deployed to Massachusetts flood, but the calls came through. Did it close fairly quickly? Massachusetts was finished this Friday, so I think it was open for about 2 weeks or so. Yeah, I think that's it. And I've received a couple of different emails about those whose calls I've taken. Yes, okay. So this is a feature that we added a couple of months ago, where on Sundays we'll send all phone volunteers a thank you email, because like so often when you receive the call, you're talking to the person on the worst day of their life, and it's your job to basically say, I'm really sorry this bad thing happened to you. Oh, by the way, I can't promise I'm going to help. Like that's a terrible thing to have to say like 100 times a day. So what we wanted to do was to let you know when the people that you have interacted with received help. So once a week, if anyone that you've talked to received help, or if they closed their case, we just send you a short email just letting you know, and just to let you know how awesome that you are and that what you do really, really, really matters.
Okay, that comment was actually because somebody messaged me and asked me how we're supposed to be able to tell if anybody we've talked to have helped. And so that I said that to everyone because I felt like it was something everybody maybe should know, but I don't now see the person who messaged me, so I don't know who that was. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Bobby asks, could we possibly include a few videos in the training actually modeling calls? Yes, we could. I think we're going to spend a little bit more energy, though, on making that interactive so that you can hear it and interact with your phone. I think that's where we're headed.
I typed that right as you were talking about that.
Awesome.
So I like your idea better.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Great.
that would be helpful. Thank you.
Jennifer likes the idea of a mock call or actual call just to hear the flow.
I do think, just to throw in really quick, we had a lot of people who did it for the very first time. This was the first time our stake was assigned, and the mock call, it wasn't actually a mock call, it was a video. Sorry, it's echoing. The video where it was an actual call was really, really helpful, although the system has updated a little bit. So that was a little confusing for people. So even an updated video with just the new system, but a mock call would probably be, even from logging in, some of the people, it was difficult for them to find where to click to start taking calls. So just even from the very beginning, that would be helpful.
Gotcha. It is. It is time. There are days when I feel like we're at a standstill, and then I'll go back and look at our training videos and realize, oh, look, we really have made a ton of updates. We really need to update our training materials. So thanks for that reminder. And yeah, we'll put that on our to-do list. Finding maps using Google Maps when you're having issues in Perry, Florida. Maybe put that in the training advice. It actually is. It's in lots and lots of documentation. The problem is that there's lots and lots of documentation. So our energy has been around like, how do we make it just in time, right? Like, can we detect the fact that you are typed in typed in an address 3 times, for example, and then say, pull a little, I don't know, like Clippy. I see you're having problems with that. Can I help you? For those of you who are Microsoft Word geeks from forever ago. Let's see here. Elder Sister West, matching the address to GIS address. Okay, so there should be a way to add it without having to find it on a map. There is, and there are instructions in the news section, I think here, or there were. Okay, well, there should be, and I don't know where that went, so we'll put it back.
I think it's in the FAQ.
In the FAQ. Okay, current known bugs and instructions or something. Anyway, this gets to the issue of documentation, right? Like there's so much documentation in so many different places, and it proliferates very, very quickly. There are several ways to do that. The first is open up well, actually, here we go. This is a perfect time to share a screen. Okay. Share. Okay. So the first thing you can do is whatever. Okay. Nothing's coming up, right, for here. So the first thing you can do is click, where am I? Case details, hold on here. No.
You're not at the address.
Yeah, here we go. Look, that address exists. Of course it exists, right? No. So the first thing you can do is click select on map. If you click select on map, this little pin will appear and you can move it to wherever you want. As long as this pin appears, the case will save. Now you'll want to put that, then you'll manually put in, the full address. You'll have to put in the full address if you do that. Another thing that I do very often when I'm having trouble finding is I will go to Google, or not Google Maps, but I'll go into Google and I'll type in the address. Wave and thing, right? And very often Zillow will come up as a Zillow will know. And so what I'll do is I'll go to Zillow and I'll type, and I'm like, okay, so this is the address that we're looking for. Yep. So I'll copy and paste that into Google, or I'm sorry, into Crisis Cleanup. Let's see. Okay. Select on map here. So if, let's say it was Thornton, Colorado. So first thing I want to do, I'm going to cancel this because, all right, I'm going to refresh to get a fresh view here. So let's
where's the refresh button within that screen?
So the refresh button is in your browser up here. You see the little circle button?
I'm looking.
On every browser in the top left corner.
I got you. Okay, I do.
There's a little circle button. Clicking that button will refresh, or often F5 will also refresh. So I just happen to click F5.
Or Control R.
Or Control R. Thank you. Yeah.
So Aaron, I have a question. Are we only doing this if it doesn't pop up as an address as far as placement on a map?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. This is only if it does not come up, correct?
Right.
Okay.
If you can't find it, if you can't find it, then you can do this is one thing that you can do.
Okay.
Right? So it's in Thornton, Colorado. I'm going to click Thornton. Okay, now I'm in the right place roughly. And so now I'm going to move the pin to the correct place. How do I know it's the correct place?
Yeah. How do
So
you?
the first thing I'm going to, so I clicked select on map, and now I can edit it. So I know it's in Thornton, Colorado, which is great because the Adams County and all of that is correct. And then I also know that it's supposed to be 2572 East 126 Way. And we're going to pretend that Google has no idea where that is. But Twilio does. And I can come over here and I can find it on Twilio. Wherever we were here. I don't know. Contact agent, overview facts. Can I see that? No. So often Twilio will know, and you'll be able to like find, East Way or whatever, and then I can come back here if I really want to and find 128
I
East
know of a
Avenue.
quicker way. So if
Okay.
you can get the address from Google,
Mhm.
there is a thing called, oh man, I use the Tennessee version for work. So it's the hometown locator. You just find that for whatever town you're in, and that will give you all the information it's asking for, along with a picture of the map for that address.
Hometown locator.
Yes.
Well, how do you populate it on our crisis cleanup page?
No, it'd have to be a separate tab you had open.
But once I find it, then I go back to the crisis
Yeah,
cleanup
it
tab.
has all 50 states, and that will give you, like, for tax purposes, what city, state, and zip is in an address, and then it will show it on a map so that you can see where you're going.
Okay. Here is another thing that you can. That's great. Oh, I didn't know about Hometown Locator. Zillow is great. Hometown Locator is great. And yes, you would open these in additional tabs and look for them there, and then you would move the little pin. And if all else fails,
But how do you know where to? I ran across that, and I'm going from this screen trying to figure out where it is in the community she called me from, and I'm thinking, okay, and it took me like 10 minutes. Is there an easier way once I find it on a Google map to get it into the crisis cleanup map?
Copy and paste.
So, kind of.
Because I had to find like a community center, and I go, okay, well, there's one on Google.
Yeah. So
but it took me forever.
Yeah, and some of these, so some of these will, and when it's easy, and 95% of the time it's just going to be easy, and you click the result, and life is good. We're talking about the 1 or 2 or 3% of time that it is just not easy. Right? You're in the middle of Kentucky somewhere, and the street that they're on has 4 different names in it, and Google doesn't know any of them. Or it's up some holler somewhere, and they're up, take the fork up the holler in the left and pass the thing that burned down in 1979. You're like,
the thing that used to be there.
The thing that used to be there. Yeah, exactly. I love those. So yes, those are going to be hard. So there is another way that you could do this, though. So let's say that you did find it on Google Maps. And I do at some point. I don't want to take like too terribly much time because I know that we can go. Maybe what I can do is stay online, maybe a little bit after, and go into more depth and training and stuff. But you can always type in like the address for like the Thornton, Colorado post office. So United States Post Office on Lafayette. Okay, great. I'm just going to do that, right? And then I can edit the address to whatever it is, and then add a note saying, this is incorrect. Here's the correct address. So you can do a post office or somewhere nearby. Just add a note saying that you know that the location is wrong, and describe where to go. So you can always do that. Then, if you know where the case is and you save it, you can go, by the way, you can go to work at any time. In fact, often I'll open up work in a new tab as well and just have that available. And after you save it, you can go to case, E4311. And let's say that you find the exact location. It's right here, right? This one right here. Zoom all the way in on Google Maps. Copy the address. And then you can click flag here. And you can say, I think I can. Come on. There we go. Wrong location. And you can paste the address of the correct from Google Maps. This is after you save it though. And it's on the work tab. And if you update location, it will move the pin to that exact location. All right. I'm going to stop sharing now, come back. That is difficult. This is an example of like the real-time stuff that we want to make available and kind of, raise up. Andy, analyzing the previous calls for pattern suggestions would be cool. That actually is our intent, is to feed some of this into, we record the calls. We want to take those, transcribe them, put them into a large language model, and begin to analyze those, and create a self-generating FAQ, for example, that's aware. That's one of our hopeful ideas.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you when you were mentioning it, that would be a good idea.
Nikki mentioned that she took down information in a notebook after hanging up. I do a similar thing, or I just simply will not hang up until I've actually saved the call. I'll keep them on the line to make sure that it saves and saves correctly.
I have a mechanical keyboard, and so I get complaints sometimes that it's too loud on the phone, so I would just write everything down, and I tell them, I've written down your information. As soon as I get this in, after we hang up, you'll get a text message that will give you your case number and a place for you to be able to put in pictures. If you so choose, you don't have to.
Right.
I also told people I didn't expect them to hug trees, but do you think you could put your arms around them?
That was, by the way, that made me smile so much when I saw that in the chat. So for those of you who may have missed that chat conversation, Nikki, it was you, I believe, who received a call from an elderly lady. Maybe you could just quickly tell that story.
Oh, okay. So I work for a roofer. So like I know better than to ask people certain questions, because then they'll want to go out and do, and I don't want them to go out and do in a dangerous situation. I have learned this because I asked a customer one time to take a picture of a roof, and for some strange reason, dude decided to get on the roof. Nope. I am very, very careful with my words now. So when I tell people, I'm asking about tree size, I was going, I do not want you to go hug a tree. But do you think you would be able to put your arms around them, or are they too big for that? And I had this old lady go, I can't do neither of that. I'm just too old.
Yep.
I was just kind of like, okay.
And that particular question started off as, is the diameter of the tree greater than 18 inches? People cannot answer that question. What's a diameter? Like frontal cortex is not functioning anyway. So that's why we landed on, could you wrap your arms around it? And that just gave me a really good chuckle. I'm an old lady. I couldn't. I don't think I could do that anyway. Gina, what did you want to add?
You're muted.
Thanks. Just before we leave the whole address issue thing, um, if you're having troubles, we have some phone volunteers who have, through much experience, become pretty good at that. And that's one of the reasons why we have like the Zoom room or some, those type of things, or the chat. Ask for help on those if you're not, an experienced sleuth in doing that. That's one of the reasons we try to provide that help, because we know that it takes a while to become good at that.
If you're ever on calls and I'm in the list of callers, you can always ask me questions about how to get stuff or ask the help getting it. I don't mind. Might even make you laugh.
Yeah. Let's see here. So to answer some other questions, let's talk about how we say the may or may not get help. I would like to open that up to a conversation. So let's put a tab there. During IDA, there was a running total of calls that I took. This time it seems to reset each time I left and came back. Sorry, we need to do a little bit more TLC on that. I think we did we're always doing upgrades, but we did an upgrade from view 2 to view 3 for anybody who happens to know what view is. And so whenever it's called digging out of technical debt, right? So like the whole world, always advances, and then you have to like redo all your systems to make sure that you're always up to date. And it's called, getting out of technical debt. And when you're all done, you spend like 2 months digging out of technical debt, and then it works almost as well as it did before. And it's super.
And then there's an update in 3 days.
Oh, yes. So I think that's one of those things that kind of broke with digging out of technical debt, and it's on our list. What is the percentage of people that will not be helped? That ranges considerably. Now, whether you want to share this with a survivor is up to you, because it may not be appropriate. Sometimes it might be. Historically, the average reported completion rate is around 66%. So around 66% on average of people have their case closed for one reason or another. Now that is a floor, not a ceiling, because volunteers don't always do their paperwork. And sometimes it's better. Hurricane Harvey, for example, was 77% reported completion. Sometimes it's much worse. Rio Grande Valley, for example, had like 25%. It was a very, very challenged area. But again, the historical average is around 66%. Problems with the phone ringing and pressing 1 and it never connects. So one of the reasons that we added that little bug feature was if you report bugs, what it does is it captures everything about your system and saves it for our developers to be able to analyze patterns. There are some just weirdness that we cannot figure out. We have spent so many months working on to try to figure out, and we've made updates and everything. And so we have a couple of ideas that it might be authentication related. We have 2 separate authentications that need to work together. And so we're kind of working in that direction. And now that, we're out of hurricane season and stuff, as of right now, we don't have any control over the press 1 to accept. That's 100% on our telephony provider's end. I don't have any mechanism to solve that, unless it's some authentication issue that we can kind of work on. But like that is literally the phone making a tone over the phone to their systems, and it doesn't even touch ours. I don't have a good solution except sorry, thank you, try again. And if it doesn't work and you're getting frustrated, take a break, walk around, do something else, and just remember that somewhere I'm losing sleep over it. Let's see here. Other things. Okay, hoarder question. You don't need to ask that question, just so you know. You don't need to ask if they're a hoarder. Um, that's awkward, and they're not, they're not going to be able to answer that question. When I click take calls, when there are 0 calls in the queue, my phone doesn't ring until I refresh the screen. Is that on the fixed list? Yes, that's part of the authentication issues. If your phone doesn't ring, if you can see that there's phone calls incoming and your phone doesn't ring after a minute or two, refresh. And then if you actually, first thing, click that bug at the bottom and enter a bug report and explain, I've been waiting for 3 minutes. I see that there are incoming calls and they won't come through. Okay, enter that bug report and then refresh, and that should do it. Please don't sit for 20 minutes waiting for a call to come in when you know that the calls are ready. Please don't. And I'm sorry. The recording seems to make it clear that they may or may not get help, correct? Yes. I would really strongly recommend that you call the hotline, any one of those hotlines, just once to listen to what people have to hear before they hear you. That is really helpful. You'll hear that they have to listen to me, set their expectations, that service is not guaranteed. Everyone is working as hard as they can. It may take a long time. Please be patient, or it may not happen at all. So they have heard all of that before they talk to you. If you ever need even coaching on the types of things you want to say, honestly, that phone system has you can listen to it for coaching and ideas. Okay. And I appreciate, it's not a bug, it's an undocumented feature. We have lots and lots of undocumented features in that case. And yes, Jennifer mentioned encouraging survivors to get on all the lists. Don't wait for us. And what is the reason for the insurance questions? Just general data collection? No. So one principle that we've followed from day one is that Crisis Cleanup's mission is not to collect data. We have some good data, but our mission is to help volunteers help more people, period. And if we get some good data out of it, fine. But I am bombarded with requests all the time to ask for more information and more data. And my question always comes back to, is this going to help volunteers help more people? And the answer is usually no, right? Just some government person or some funder or something is generally interested. That's not good enough. It has to help volunteers help more people. So that question, do they have insurance, is to help volunteers in the field prioritize their limited effort. And they might want to prioritize people without insurance first, for example. So all of the questions that we ask are in that vein. I think I caught up on the questions. Anything else? What did I miss?
Anytime anybody asks about that insurance question, I'm like, we're not gathering information on you. We just need to know so that we can help accordingly, because with insurance, you can't really go in and help the first week because they have to take pictures and get insurance information first before anybody can touch anything. And so that's kind of how I explain it. We just need to know how to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bobby asked, the hotline is over, but can people still use Crisis Cleanup for Idalia or anywhere else? Yes, the answer is yes. So you or anyone else can put cases in there. We close the hotline though. So we asked 3 questions with the hotline. First, do people still need help? Yes, the answer is always yes. Number 2, is there a significant amount of volunteerism going on in the field? So basically when volunteers go home, we don't want to create false hope. And that gets back to the mission of helping volunteers help more people. If there aren't volunteers in the field, we will turn off the hotline, not because people don't need help, but because we don't want to create false hope. And then the third question we ask is, do we have phone volunteers available to answer calls? If the answer to all 3 of those is yes, well, we'll keep the hotline open indefinitely. In practice, it's usually 2 to 4 weeks, with some exceptions, some very rare exceptions, but that's pretty typical. Now, if you're in the field, though, yes, you can continue to use crisis cleanup and add cases and claim them, and organizations will for many, many months. It's just going to be at a rate of about 1 to 5% of the peak. So most of the volunteers have gone home for Hurricane Idalia. And then Hope, I mentioned that the hoarder question is useful. In the field, helping hoarders is one of the hardest things. Oh my goodness, it's so hard. Even if it were just the sheer amount of stuff, of course, is intimidating. But then they have a need to go through and inspect every single thing before you throw it away, and it's just not sustainable. It's hard. Yeah, tone is everything when you're managing expectations. Handle them gently, absolutely. Listen, oh my goodness, just listen. Let them know that you're on their team and that you're trying hard and everyone is trying hard. And that is usually enough to help. As long as people feel heard, they feel listened to, you're going to give them the positive experience and the gift that they need and that you can offer them. So Josh, call from Hawaii last night, who was asking if the phone number was going to change for that location after closing, and if there's a way that it could remain open. We will probably keep the Hawaii hotline open for a long time, honestly. Let me give you all an update on Hawaii, if that's all right. Yeah. I was actually supposed to be in Hawaii. I decided not to go, though. It's a little bit of a mess. So there are lots of layers in Hawaii. For our purposes, the government is taking a long time to open up the affected area. It'll be a couple of more months, frankly, before all of the areas are open, and some of that is for good reason. When they do search and rescue and retrieving bodies, retrieving remains, that is not completely over even at this point. There are some apartment complexes that have pancaked, and that becomes very delicate, intricate work to be able to do that. But we are at the point where zones are opening up, and the survivors are just barely beginning to have access to their homes or even realize that they want ash sifting in the first place. So we would like to keep that open. Our hope was that, I don't even know how to say this. Our hope is we'd have other disasters, right? Like, no, we don't hope that at all. But that we could keep it open with the hotlines for others, just kind of like leave it open while other hotlines were going, which is kind of what we've been doing. The call volume has been low. We expect it to continue to be low but steady for a while, and I would like to keep it open as long as we humanly can. I don't know if I have any questions along those lines. But if you do, put them in the chat or just raise your hand or just unmute. See, there's another question about, will you reach out to us when it's next time? So we try to. So let me answer that question by kind of reviewing the internals. A lot of this apparently is me just sitting on the couch and you listening to me like kind of express all of the inner strugglings that I have. So let me express the inner struggling that we have with that. So we love you to death. We are so grateful for phone volunteers. It's hard to know when to reach out to phone volunteers and ask for help because when it's a high attention disaster, some huge catastrophic and everything, then typically what happens is Gina and I are inundated with requests like, hey, can we help answer phones? Can we help answer phones? Can we help answer phones? By like organizations all over the place. And the answer is some version of yes, but I don't need you now. I need you in 2 weeks. So like, I don't need 450 people sitting on the phones waiting for 50 calls to come in, because then I'm going to lose 400 of those volunteers because their time was wasted, and I don't want to waste your time, but I'm going to need you in 2 weeks when the call volume is 1,000 calls per day, right? So much of what Gina and I are doing is like balancing all of that. So the bigger the disaster, ironically, often the less we need to like call everybody, because it's a high attention disaster and everybody like comes to us, right? So we're managing that. If it's a low attention disaster, then what we could do, but we've decided not to do, is to call up all you stalwarts and just say, hey, would you mind answering calls for another disaster? And it's a low attention disaster and nobody's available to answer calls, and could you do that? We've learned, again, through more painful experience, to not do that. The reason why is that we have found that if we cannot get phone volunteers locally, we're not going to have a response locally either. We found that there's a very strong correlation. If we cannot get phone volunteers, we're not going to have ground volunteers either. And so we've learned this from painful experience, we require some local volunteers. It doesn't have to be many. It can be like 2 or 4. And I don't even care, frankly, if they show up most of the time, right? Like, but you gotta have some engagement locally. Otherwise, you're gonna have a terrible response anyway. So in that case, what Gina and I have tried to do to be respectful of you, especially you stalwarts who are there forever and always and show up even, without asking, which by the way, you can do. You can just show up and we don't even know, and we thank you. But we'll ask at that point for some stalwarts to do a pinch hit for a period of time. If we know that we're going to get 4 or 5 volunteers locally, but we need somebody to come in and fill the gap for a week, or 2 to 7 days or something, that's when we'll call some of the stalwarts and say, hey, would you mind filling in? Because we don't want to burn you out, because you're so amazing and we love you. We're so grateful. That was a long answer to a short question. I hope it helps.
Yeah, there's some like mid-sized disasters where I'm like desperate for volunteers. It just depends. Every disaster is totally different. And I don't want to like burn out just the top stalwarts. And so it truly is a juggling act. That's what keeps me up. It's trying to find volunteers and then have them stay through the duration of the incident instead of just drop off after the first few days.
Yeah.
And so you're totally welcome if you hear about a disaster and you are twiddling your thumbs and have some time to log on and take calls. That's great. But that's why we've been a bit hesitant to like send out emails asking you, but it's hard.
It's because we love you.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm just desperate for phone volunteers and I don't know where I'm going to get them.
Hurricane Ida was the exception. The governor told the whole state to call, and then the whole state called. We've never had more than 3,000 calls in a single day. Hurricanes like Harvey and Irma, for example, we kissed 2,900 something, right, just below 3,000. We've kissed 3,000 a couple of times. On a Sunday, which, as you all probably know, is our least busy day, we had 4,500 calls. This was last year. The following day was 8,700 calls. And that is one of those times we just pulled the fire alarm. And I said, all hands on deck, please, everybody, anywhere, all the time. And you did it. You guys did it. You called every single person back. And it was a miracle. It was amazing. I have since talked to the emergency manager in Lee County who sent a text message to everyone in Lee County, Florida, saying you should call crisis cleanup, and then they did. Um, and I actually talked to him, and he said, "Yeah, I probably should have talked to you before I did that." I'm like, "Yeah, you should have. You should have let us know, and you could have. There's a lot of things we could have done differently." Yeah, but he promised not to do that again. But if he doesn't, someone else will. So let's see. Andy mentions a page that shows projected staffing needs. Where the where we've gone with that is that number, right? The number of calls, either inbound calls. That's the number to look at. Only divide by 2 or whatever. I don't know if it's still doubling. I don't know, Gina, if you've noticed if it's still doubling or not. But anyway, that number. If it's a big number, we need more people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can definitely, I don't know. We can, yeah. I guess we need to talk about it. I mean, a lot of you are saying you're interested in help, and I guess we just need to have a discussion about that more.
I wanted to let you guys know like what's going on, in the back of our minds and what we're trying to balance. Bobby asked, how many calls did we get for Adalia? It was 60,000 phone calls for Adalia, and every single person got a call back, which was like amazing, absolutely amazing.
And one random one in Missouri.
Yeah. You always love those random ones. You're like, wait, where are you calling from? And we always put them on. Go ahead and put them on. That's fine. Because sometimes they'll actually be part of a disaster that we don't even know about and that we'll learn about and then maybe add sometimes. And sometimes there are people, who lost their home in a fire and they need help. But because there's no major disaster response, we're probably not going to be able to help them. So.
In this case, her tree fell into her neighbor's yard and hit their electric line and took it out. And so like the electric company was saying, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. And the neighbor is pissed because he hadn't had power in a couple days, and I'm going, we're not even there. I don't know what to tell you. Like, not that rudely, of course. But then I was like, call 211, and she's like, I did. Like, she's practically crying, and it took a while to get that kind of resolved in a way that she was okay with, but I like had no idea what to do.
Yeah, and that's a really good example of there are many problems that we can't solve. And that stinks. In those moments where you have a problem that is unsolvable, either because you don't know the answer or it's something dangerous like electrical lines that volunteers can't do, or whatever, right? Like we've all had those phone calls. I want you to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and just ask yourself, what can you give them? And what I would suggest, the reason why we do what we do, whether we're in the field with a chainsaw or mucking out a basement, it's not to make people all the way better. We can't. We don't. We never ever do. If we muck out their house, it's great. It's really important. But when we leave, there are no walls. Like we've taken out all their walls. They need walls. You may take a big tree off their roof, but now they have a giant hole in their roof, and you put a tarp on it, but they still need a new roof. We don't make people better, but what we can do is restore hope. And I would submit that anytime, anything that you are doing, whether you're out in the field or listening or answering a phone call or whatever it is that you're doing, if you're restoring their hope, then you're doing it right, because that is what you can offer them. And sometimes that means listening to them, crying with them. I've had people ask me to pray for them. And if you feel comfortable, please do. Just be with them and do everything that you can do to restore their hope, and take as much time as you need. because that's why we do what we do.
This is Elder Lovelady in Missouri. I'd like to say one thing because that's one of the things that I do as a humanitarian welfare and self-reliance missionary. There is a website that's called findhelp.org. And it's similar to the 211, but it is so much easier to use. All a person has to do is put in their zip code in findhelp.org, and it will give them local resources. There's 10 categories of local resources that they can check into. I actually talked to some of the people that we did with Crisis Cleanup when they were asking about things that I knew Crisis Cleanup couldn't help them with. And it's a fantastic possible resource when we know there's nothing else that we can do in this regard. Just wanted to share that with you.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great information. I didn't know that because I sheepishly had a call like that and ended up, she goes, well, what do I do? And I says, and it was something that was out of our jurisdiction and it's something I couldn't put on the map. And I says, is there a church around? And she goes, well, what church? So I gave them the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I says, call them, they'll come out and help you. So I probably maybe shouldn't have done that, but I kept thinking we're always willing to help. But that's great information about the findhelp.org.
Findhelp.org. If you go to that site and put in your zip code, I guarantee that you will find somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 local resources in your area under 10 different categories, from finding help with food and rent and transportation and legal aid, and it's just amazing, and most people don't even know it's there.
That's great.
And I found myself doing the same thing sometimes when I'll just look on Google Maps and find a local Baptist church or a local Methodist church or something, and say, I can't guarantee obviously anything, but maybe reach out and just ask, and sometimes that works out.
I had a lady call and she had a plumbing stack on her roof that was leaking. At least that was the only thing she could think of it was. Plus she had some trees down. I put the trees down in the thing, but I said, for that roofing problem, I'm like, are you involved in a church? And she's like, yeah. I was like, go talk to your pastor and tell him that you need one of the roofers that go to your church to come take a look at your roof for 5 minutes and maybe bake them a cake. As long as you're not going to poison them. Like, know how to bake a cake first. And she laughed and was like, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. So.
Yes, that's great. I've also had conversations with, I remember this conversation with a single mom. She had three kids and was just kind of beside herself, and put her on the list, of course. But I also, explained what volunteers would do, which is cut the, drywall usually to about 4 feet, because they're going to slide in the full sheets of drywall anyway. And, I just explained. And by the time we were done, she's like, "Oh, wait a second, I can do that." And like, she was just totally, empowered. And anyway, those are good conversations too. When you just, restore hope. Mm-hmm. You're restoring hope. You're doing it right. Let's see here. Anything else? Sometimes we're just a caring ear because there's nothing they want but to be heard and feel like someone cares. Yes. And a question I often get is, well, do you have an online form that people can fill out? And we don't. And it would be so much easier to do that, right? It's a very easy thing to do. We don't, for a couple of reasons, because the information that we get is just not very useful. Survivors are not thinking clearly. Your frontal cortex is impaired, like physiologically, and so it doesn't matter the words you put on the page, like you physiologically can't understand them. But I think more importantly, we want them to have a good experience. And so that's why we do the phone calls, is so that they can feel heard, which is something that we can give them. Karen, it would be nice to have the training easier to find. Yes. And what we're doing some design work in the background to really think through how to do this sustainably, and having like context aware just in time training is kind of where we're headed. It'll be a while, but yeah, we're working on it.
For now, I sent out a document to each of the organizations because, you know, this occurs at an organization level. And so I can put a link to that in the chat. And so we rely on the organizations to get that training info out to their individual volunteers.
Let's see here. I wanted to share my screen one more time, and this person's name is escaping me for some reason, and I apologize. But I got a call. I got a call from a phone volunteer, and she asked me some sort of question about like whether her login would work to help in the field or something like that. And her question was a little bit odd, so I ended up calling her up. And what you're looking at over here on the left is her trailer. She lives in Barre, Vermont, and was affected by the floods in the Northeast a couple of months ago. She had to be whitewater rescued. She got severe dehydration. She was in the Barre, Vermont auditorium for several weeks, and didn't realize at first that crisis cleanup was even being used. She ended up calling 211 and explained her situation and that she needed help with cleanup and stuff. And the person on the other end of the line started asking her questions, and about 4 questions in, she just starts laughing. And then the call center person said, what's so funny? She says, I can tell you what the next question is. I've been asking these questions since Hurricane Harvey. She's been a phone volunteer. I went out to Barre, and I don't know, like for me, this really hit home for me because we're supposed to be the helpers, you know, like we're there to help. And when one of your own has that happen to you, it really affected me quite a bit. I ended up meeting her though. Can you hear me? Oh,
hello.
And we went out to dinner. She's doing better. She's in a place in southern Vermont. But I just wanted to share that quick story. Just thank you for all that you do. It makes a difference. Hopefully we stay on that side of the phone. I'll show you a couple other quick little things. So this is in Vermont. This was a little town that started up, FEMA trailer. Anyway, Convoy of Hope was doing some things, shelters. This is a house that we mucked out, and we found this and decided to put that up in the middle. We didn't have any takers, so I'm not sure why. Then in this house, all of that mud was in the basement. It was a elderly man, and we had to haul that out one bucket at a time. This is a little town called Cabot, Vermont. If you see Cabot cheese, this is where it's made, just right down the street. It's like a one-road little town in Vermont with no cell coverage. And like this is the torrent that came through and kind of undermined both these buildings. I was deployed out. This was the extension of the command center. And then while I was there, the governor's office said the Department of Transportation wants to help with cleanup. And typically what that means is that they want to pay their staff to go volunteer with organizations. I'm like, okay, well, I better get really involved in that. And they corrected me. They said, no, 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 we want to go muck out basements. Like, wait, you're a government agency and you want to enter private property and muck out? I have never heard of this before, but this is awesome. So they had 200 volunteers all gathered together. And here's a funny story. Whenever I go out to a site and I want to stand out, I have this high vis jacket that I'll wear, and that way people know that they can ask me questions and things. And so I thought, oh, I'll just wear my high vis jacket, right? And I come to a sea of high vis jackets because it's the Department of Transportation. Of course, everybody has high vis jackets. So I just fit right in instead of, looking special or anything. But they organized, and I was scared to death that they weren't going to have enough to do. We worked desperately. We trained their team leads. The team leads went on. They claimed cases. I was in this command center with where a bunch of volunteers were helping coordinate. It was great. And then this was lunch, and it's hard to see, but these guys are covered in mud from head to toe. And this is when I knew things were going right. And you see this little moment right over here, right? The hugs and the stories. Everyone was telling a story, and everyone was covered in mud. And that's when I knew that we had done it right. So they had school buses that were driving people around very efficiently all up and down Barry. I want to point out that, this is what your work enables. All of these calls, all of these cases came from the phone system, from you answering calls and putting them on the map. And because they're on the map, it mobilized volunteers that would have otherwise stayed home because they could see. So I just want you to know, your work matters. It mobilizes people and helps people. We parked on the tarmac. You can see there are a lot of people there. This was another day. I went out with a local, just actually a group that came in from Massachusetts. We went into this woman's basement. She had 3.5 cords of wood. And if you've ever seen a cord of wood, it is a lot more than you think it should be. And we had to pull those all out. And she had about 7 cubic yards of mud that we had to pull out 1 bucket at a time. I have been told there are 2 types of fun in this world. The first type 1, is pleasant enjoyment. When you chill out with friends and watch a movie or play a game. Type 1 fun. Type 2 fun, totally awesome misery fest. And so we had lots and lots of type 2 fun that day, as you can see. Lots of type 2 misery fests. Then I get a call from the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Actually, a registration on the website. And I thought to myself, well, why am I getting the Department of, gambling and booze, right? Calling me up. What do you want, right? You just want to feel special and see what's going on. So anyway, I call up. This person is Wendy. She's the commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery, reports directly to the governor. She's the one who registered. And I called up Wendy, and it's so funny. Everybody goes by first names there. And Wendy explains, I kind of, let her, oh, you just want some situational awareness? She's like, no. I heard what Joe did. Now, Joe is the commissioner of the Department of Transportation. I heard what Joe did, and we want to do the same thing. What is in the water here? So another government agency sponsored their employees, paid their employees to go up to another little town. And this person right here, she was a community organizer. And in telling them all what to do, right? And so I was able to put everybody together and get them to work, again, because of what you do. You are the ones who told the stories of the survivors in these little towns that put these volunteers to work. And this is, it was, should have done a before, but this was filled halfway up with garbage and stuff. Well, what turned out to be garbage after the flood, and we cleaned it all out. And then, mucked out another basement, and this was some of those volunteers. This is the state voluntary agencies liaison in charge of AmeriCorps. We had a couple of AmeriCorps folks and a lot of spontaneous volunteers and had a lot of fun. Type 2 fun. So I don't know. I just wanted to share some of those stories because it is helpful sometimes to see that what you do matters and to say thank you and thank you and thank you and thank you. Well, with that, I know it's about it's almost about 7:30 my time. So I certainly don't want to hold anybody later than we need to. Thank you. And so if you need to drop off now, please feel free to do so. Feel free to stay, ask questions. Thank you.